Hi, Dan Stein. Welcome to another fair broadcast, Facebook Live, and I hope you're able to tear yourself away from Mark Zuckerberg's testimony today in the House. It looks like he's getting roughed up a little bit more today in the House because yesterday I thought the senators were pretty, I guess they get a lot of political money from Facebook, but it didn't seem like they were asking a lot of the tough questions. We did hear a few senators asking about censorship on the Facebook platform. That was good. But today we're going to be talking with Joe Gomez, who's FAIR's press secretary and doing a super job. And he's actually led our border investigation task force down to the border recently. Take a look at what's happening, particularly in the California area around San Diego, south of San Diego, near the San Ysidro port of entry. It had been a little while since we'd had a chance to look at the situation down there, as well as to take a look at the prototype border models that Donald Trump is desperately trying to get money to help build. Obviously, Governor Brown doesn't think we need border security money, and he doesn't seem to want to send the National Guard down. But there's no question about it that there's a lot of work that still needs to be done. Nothing like the situation we saw in the mid-1980s. But many people were really shocked, our young people, some of the people who've gone down there for the first time, shocked at what they saw. And here to tell us more about it is Joe Gomez. We welcome your comments and suggestions. I'm watching the feed right here. I will be able to and will respond to your questions as best I can because this is a learning experience, not just for you, but for me, because I wasn't down there with Joe and his team. But Joe, what did you find when you went down there?
Well, Dan, it was very surprising and shocking what we found out. I mean, we went down there with the purpose of kind of looking at the border fence, trying to evaluate the illegal immigration problem that's happening between California and Mexico. But instead, we were shocked by the environmental hazards that we encountered along the border. There's the Tijuana River, which is kind of a natural separation between California and parts of Chula Vista, Imperial Beach, those communities right next to the border. And in the Tijuana River, according to the Border Patrol, they have 30 to 50 gallons of sewage that regularly spill from Mexico, from Tijuana, into that river, polluting it, filling it with this kind of toxic brew. In fact, it's so bad at times that the Border Patrol agents have said that they have had many of their own fall sick to this toxic waste. There were some people who actually walked into it and experienced chemical burns. One man actually with boots on, Dan, walked into this, and the brew burned right through the boots into his feet, and so they have to chase after illegal aliens.
So this is in the United States of America we're talking about, right?
We're talking
the Tijuana River?
Right. So the Tijuana River kind of separates the California and Mexico, but this is actually happening in the U.S. So you have somebody from Mexico who's coming into the U.S. illegally, and they're running into this toxic brew, and the Border Patrol agents actually have to chase after them into this. And, we experienced firsthand kind of what it's like, and I have to tell you, Dan, what we saw and what you will see, it really is pretty amazing.
All right, well, let's take a look. We got some video to show you of the toxic waste down there right along the border. And you'll notice you don't see a lot of fencing there either. We'll talk about the fences in a minute, but let's take a look at this video to show you something of what's going on down there.
This is Goat Canyon.
Oh, God.
There's a trickle coming through now. Up until just a week ago, it was a heavy flow every day. If this bothers you, let me know. We can move. This is where our supervisor agent had to go to the hospital for methane and hydrogen sulfide burns. But this is what comes through. This is, look at the color. It's like green. That's not green from like good algae.
I can't even believe you guys are allowed to walk around out here without any masks.
We have to check this out.
I mean, it burns to breathe it in.
That's really pretty striking there, Joe. So what's the deal with the fencing around there?
Well, the fencing, there's the primary fence and the secondary fence, at least along parts of the South San Diego and Mexico area. And the primary fence was built sometime back in the mid-90s, and it was built from airport landing strips. Yeah. And it's completely...
We were part of that, you know. That was surplus from the Navy.
Really?
Peter Nunez, who's on our advisory board, he actually helped get those landing mats along with Duncan Hunter back in the 1980s. Before that, there was nothing.
It's amazing because, they have not tried to fix those landing mats. I mean, they're literally leaning over in some parts. And you never see this on television. This is something you'll never see on television. But we'll show it to you if you go to immigrationreform.com and fairus.org. But the terrain on the Mexican side of those landing mats that are so rusted is actually higher. So you could have, conceivably, a child, and it happens all the time, a child with asthma could probably hop over those landing strips that they call a fence. And people just, they regularly come through. I mean, they really need to build the wall along that section of the border. It's just, to me, it's confounding why that hasn't happened yet.
So, do you think the National Guard would be an incredible deterrence? Would they be a major force? Tim Wagner asked that question.
Well, the National Guard can only help in a backup role, as you know.
Wouldn't they be intimidating?
Well, sure. I mean, if the National Guard would definitely free up the Border Patrol to actually, do work from, instead of working behind the desk or what have you, actually go out there and find some of these illegal aliens that are sneaking over or hopping over the fence in some cases. So, yeah, I mean, any kind of backup support the Border Patrol can get, because they are so undermanned. It's hard for me to imagine that they're actually doing as good of a job as they're doing, given the resources, which are very limited, that they have available to them.
Bonnie wants to know if the Mexican government won't pay for the wall, will the Democrats? Can we get the Democrats to pay for the wall?
Well, that might be a good question for the governor of California, right? But it doesn't sound like that's going to happen anytime soon. I mean, he won't even clean up the toxic waste that's coming across into the United States, coming into California state parks. We actually saw a beam that said California State Park, and right next to that you saw this sewage just kind of spilling in. And it's remarkable.
So isn't it remarkable that the environmental organizations, the Sierra Club, Friends of the Earth, they're all worked up about the border wall and its environmental impact. We don't seem to hear much about what's happening with this toxic sludge all over the border area.
Yeah, it's kind of hypocritical, I guess. They talk about the environmental hazards, about how they care about the wildlife, etc. But the wildlife is exposed to a lot of this toxic sewage. People are exposed to it if they just want to go hiking in the mountains for a Sunday. So why aren't they out there cleaning up the sewage instead of, just kind of crying about the wall?
But you also took a lot of pictures of the actual fencing that's there now along the border between there and, I guess, Smuggler's Gulch. Where can people go it's fairus.org? Where can they find the pictures?
Immigrationreform.com. You can see a lot of those pictures. The rusted border fence. We saw holes in some of the secondary fencing, actually, which is really puzzling, because that fencing is supposed to be the strongest, and it was near the border wall prototypes where we found some of the holes that they would cut into. They would just kind of like laser through these holes or something, or laser through the fence and just kind of go right through. But there was many parts of the wall where you could tell they had to do patchwork work to just stop some of these illegal aliens coming into the country.
Did you see any practical reason why a wall itself would be a bad idea? I mean, like the prototypes?
Yeah, I mean, and you talk to the border agents, and they like the idea of a wall. It would protect them. And the thing that was really striking to me when I was along the border, aside from the chemical waste, which was not only striking, it was disgusting. I mean, I could still smell it, some of my clothes. But the Border Patrol agents, they have to live in fear at times, because if their IDs are given away and the Mexican cartels find out who they are, they can put bounties on their heads. People have this idea that just because you're in the U.S., you're free from the cartel's reach, but that's not true. They can reach very deeply in the United States.
Martin says, why don't we use the garbage and sludge for renewable energy? And he says, Martin says, kill two birds with one stone. Well, you found something out about birds down there, right? Didn't you guys see something that happens to the ducks, the waterfowl?
Well, right. I mean, it's kind of a lighter, not even really kind of a lighter topic. It's really almost tragic. But what we found was there was just this large deformed duck. The Border Patrol called it a mutant duck. Now, we don't know for sure if it is or not, but it looked
certainly a sick duck.
It certainly was a sick duck. It looked like it was about 3 times the size of a regular duck, and you have wildlife just drinking out of that toxic spillage, and we have evidence of what looked to us like a deformed creature. The Border Patrol agreed. So why is it the Sierra Club or environmental groups going out there? It's a great question that you pose.
And all this sludge comes from Tijuana, right?
From Tijuana, yeah. So in Tijuana, they have a lot of foreign companies that like to utilize cheap Mexican labor. There's even some U.S. companies as well, manufacturing plants, and they do a terrible job at actually repairing their chemical treatment facilities. And so sometimes when it rains, there's this huge swell that will occur, and all that gunk, all that garbage comes pouring into the United States.
So did you talk to enough Border Patrol officers to know if there's support for actually building this wall out there?
Yeah, I mean, almost every agent that I spoke to seemed to have that kind of support for a wall. I mean, they're desperate for some more help. What they call it right now, we saw it was a striking visual, but there was one Border Patrol agent perched on this cliff overlooking the Tijuana River, and they called it the green wall, the green line, and he's only one guy. Now that agent, if there's a couple of illegal aliens or smugglers coming over, he can call for backup. That's fine. But imagine if there were 1,000 people coming illegally into the country through some porous area along the border. That agent or those agents are going to have a pretty tough time, I'd imagine.
Well, you were down there when this caravan was moving forward as a caravan, right?
Correct.
Did you talk to any of the agents about how they would handle that? I mean, they're still coming.
Well,
and they're still going to ask for asylum. They're just coming in a less organized fashion, right?
Right. I mean, it sounds like the caravan, which started off at like 1,500, has kind of gotten to a couple of hundred. But, I mean, the agents were very fearful that they would exploit certain areas in the border, maybe not the area that we saw, but areas further east along the California-Mexico border going into Arizona, Mexicali, for instance, areas like that. But they also said that asylum cases were increasing. That is, people that would just claim asylum. It's like, the magic word. It's like open sesame. If they come into the United States.
I mean, in 1993, we had the exact same problem. Anybody could say, I'm in fear, and they would be released. And that's how we got the first World Trade Center bombing. 60 Minutes did a big expose on that in 1993. You can find it on our YouTube channel. Basically, today, the Trump administration is trying to put something through Congress to continue to close these asylum loopholes. The big quandary in detention spaces, if the detention space is full, if you detain everybody, people stop coming, okay? And that's great, but then the detention space winds up eventually emptying out, and they go, why do we need all this detention space? So instead, you have this cat and mouse game, catch and release, a sort of an equilibrium where eventually everybody who wants to get in gets in, and that's what Trump is trying to stop. So now, not everybody in California is sitting back and taking the Jerry Brown and the Democrats' opposition to enforcement sitting down, right? You guys actually had a chance to talk to the mayor of Escondido?
That's correct. I mean, so, a big part of this trip also was talking to some of the local city and state officials and just the grassroots about what they felt about the California sanctuary law. And it was amazing the groundswell of support that we saw. And we were lucky enough to actually talk to the mayor of Escondido, California in San Diego County. He led the effort to make Escondido the first city in San Diego County to oppose the California
It's like a firestorm, isn't it, really?
It really kind of feels like it. It's like one city after another. They're coming like dominoes in oppositions to the sanctuary law, to the sanctuary policies, because they know it puts their communities at risk.
The mayor's an immigrant, too, right?
He's an immigrant from Lebanon, came
Lebanon.
legally into this country.
All right, well, let's take a look. Let's look at a very short clip of Joe talking to the mayor of Escondido.
Sadly enough, the progressive and the liberal in Sacramento are disconnected from the cities and local government here, and they want to take our local policing power away. I think there is a strong support against SB 54, except Governor Brown. They continue to harbor illegal criminals. Harboring and protecting illegal criminals and giving them more rights than our citizens is immoral, is illegal, and it's unconstitutional. So I'm very proud that my city and the city council is leading the way and joining the federal lawsuit against SB 54. There is an overwhelming majority opposing the sanctuary state now because it's hurting the community. Under SB 54, the illegal immigrants are affected more because there is no more coordination with ICE in targeting criminals only.
It's pretty powerful stuff. He's definitely committed to this, and this is part of a growing groundswell in the state. So it's clearly not monolithic. Not everybody supports California, the California Democrats, the governing political disposition to just open the floodgates and let everybody run in, right?
Right. I mean, the mayor Sam Abed talked about how even immigrants in these immigrant communities don't like the sanctuary policies because they feel that they're more endangered by them. I mean, if you have a criminal alien that committed a crime and they are caught by police, the police cannot enforce federal immigration law. They have to just let this person go and not place a detainer on them. So you could have dangerous criminal aliens out there in the streets, and it's something that the mayor pointed out that the immigrant community was really shocked by. And we talked not only with the city officials, but we also spoke with some of the grassroots supporters to oppose sanctuary laws. And that was where you really saw a lot of the support and a lot of the energy that, frankly, I haven't seen since the 2016 election.
Yeah, and this is actually emerging as a political issue, certainly in the 2018 election campaign, including even in California. You all spent some time talking to a radio host who's helping to galvanize support against SB 54. Which is the California sanctuary law. I think you spent some time at Kogo Radio with Carl DeMaio.
Carl DeMaio, right, and he's leading a coalition against SB 54. And we went. He had just finished a rally, and we met him out in the field to do a live interview. And so you could see a lot of his supporters from that rally came out with him to watch as we spoke about sanctuary policy.
You've done a study that just got released today that shows that that's all nonsense.
Right, yeah. We released this new analysis that shows that sanctuary policies do not promote cooperation with police. They make communities less safe. Basically, the argument from Open Borders advocates is that, if you have sanctuary policies and you have illegal aliens that know that they can exist in this community, that they're going to be more apt to cooperate with law enforcement, knowing that they're not going to be, caught for being here illegally and suddenly deported. It doesn't happen. I mean, if you have sanctuary policies, what you end up doing is releasing criminals back out into the streets because you have local police officers not following ICE detainer policies, not working with federal immigration rules. So if you have somebody who, let's say, hit a couple of cars, and they hit a couple of cars last week, they're going to be released back into the streets. And guess what? Immigrants, even illegal immigrants, are going to be impacted by releasing a dangerous criminal alien back onto the streets.
Amazing stuff. So, Joe, politically, what does it mean? You go down there to the border, you see what's happening, you see the toxic sludge, you see the people coming in illegally, you see the efforts by citizens over and over again to raise the clarion call and demand for Congress to act. You see the Trump administration asking for money for a wall, trying to close loopholes, ending chain migration, and do all the things that needs to be done. You see Paul Ryan saying, hey, I'm just going to quit. What does it mean for the average American that Congress fails to respond to the situation you and your team saw down there?
Well, there's a lot of disappointment that Congress isn't doing the job that the people elected them to do. I mean, they elected President Trump for a reason. Everybody thought Hillary Clinton was going to win for sure, but Trump came out with this unexpected win. That's because it's because Congress, the majority of politicians are out of touch with the people. And so when California, what was interesting to me is that California, you refer to it as a blue state, et cetera, whatever. But if you talk to everyday Americans out there, and not in every part of California do you have, purple, dyed in blue liberals. You have some people that really care about the country.
Eva says on our feed, says California is a lost cause. Is Eva right or is she wrong?
I think that Eva's wrong. Based on what I saw, I think that there is an opportunity right now to really galvanize support against laws like SB 54, which promote sanctuary policies. I think a lot of people are finally having a wake-up call after California's sanctuary laws because they feel like their life is endangered.
So Jason doesn't agree with us, but he says don't build a wall. But what is the best argument for not building any wall at all along the border?
Well, I guess the best argument would be interior enforcement, but you're not seeing a lot of that happen with the California sanctuary policies. So if you're not going to build a wall along the border and you're going to have these sanctuary policies which act like a magnet for illegal aliens, what are you doing then?
Just so you know, this is possible to win. FAIR and our activists around the country have beat back sanctuary laws recently in Maryland, in Tennessee. There's going to be a big push against SB 54 in the 2020 election. Already they're talking about gathering signatures for that. It's not a lost cause. In fact, a lot of progress has been made. Donald Trump has illuminated public understanding about a lot of these immigration issues that many of us who've been working in this field for decades have actually waited to have happen. So sometimes the greatest progress is made just before the path of most resistance. And right now, this last stand that we see with Democrats, they're being set up to see this as a major political issue in the 2018 campaign, and it has the potential to make this a major issue that could advance this cause and Trump's immigration positions in the next 5 years. You agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it could be another 2016 where they think that they're walking into an easy win, but because of the backlash to sanctuary policies or to some of these municipalities not following federal immigration law, among other things, they could wake up to a bucket of cold water in their face and find out that some of these reliable Democratic districts suddenly flip red instead.
Well, Randy, Jim, Michelle, Andrea, Linda, Jerry, want to thank you for all your comments. Keep them coming. We'll be reviewing all of them over the next 24 hours. Share with your friends. A lot of them want to see this. Appreciate your comments. And Joe, your team, you went down there. You got right up there to the toxic waste. You got right up there. Got to look at the prototypes. You see that the progress is being made, but there's a lot more to be done. So thanks for joining me, and thanks for being part of FAIR. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.